Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 125, Meng and Yu. There was not much of the 6th month left. Qiang province's garrison troops were already beginning to take shape, and it was time for Xiao Qiye to continue his journey north. Not once had he sent a personal letter to Liu Bei in the 2 months he was in Zongbo, and likewise, Liu Bei did not send him one, either. Both parties seemed to have come to some kind of tacit understanding. Meng began to spend more and more time out hunting. Xiao Qiye knew it was flying north. He stood in the courtyard today, watching the sun sink in the far distance. It was only when Shenzhequan rapped lightly on the door frame behind him that he returned to his senses. Xiao Qiye looked back at Shenzhequan from under the last of the evening rays. Shenzhequan felt as if Xiao Qiye had grown a little taller again. Those broad shoulders of his bore the weight of the setting sun. He was far more sturdy than he had been 6 years ago. Shenzhequan watched for a moment until Xiao Qi turned aside slightly and said, "Let's go horse riding." Unlike the last time they went horse riding in Chu capital, Xiao Qiye was serious this time. He led Shenzhequan up Langtao Shuijin and explained it all to Shenzhequan regardless of significance, from how to step on the saddle to how to pull on the reins. It was as if he wanted to leave it all to Shenzhequan, his horse, his eagle, his heart. The two men rode on the horse together and trotted along the forested path outside the city of Qiang province. This section of the path was not long. They ran until the last rays of the sun on the horizon vanished. Stars adorned the vast stretch of the sky behind them, sprinkling the ground with a smattering of light. The lands in the mountain ranges to the north were rich in vegetation and water. Langtao Shuijin ran up the slope. Xiao Qiye reined in the horse and sat in the wind as he said to Shenzhequan, "The Hanjian mountains lie at the end." Shenzhequan looked out into the distance. On this cloudy night, the boundless sky stretched on in the far distance. He could vaguely catch a glimpse of the tall, rising peaks of the Hanjian mountains. It looked like a dragon lying at the end of the earth, asleep in eternal rest. It drew a meandering demarcation line at the very edge of Great Jiu. One could see its contours from Zongbo but not reach it from where they were. It nourished the vast expanse of land north of Great Jiu. It was a natural formed wall that rose from the earth of Liu Bei. Shenzhequan heard the howl of the wind, a wind that was entirely unlike of what was in Chu capital. It blew against him, sending the sleeves of his robe fluttering like a white bird spreading its wings. This is the call of the Hanjian mountains. It'll miss me, too. When we get closer to it, we will be able to hear the song of the wind even more clearly. Xiao Qiye spurred Langtao Shuijin into a run. They jolted in the wind, shooting across the billows of wild grasses like a bird swooping towards Hanjian mountains. Meng flapped its wings and chased after them from behind. It circled in the air and dove, leaving behind a line of bent grass in its trail as it swept past. Xiao Qiye suddenly said in Shenzhequan's ear, "I want to take you there to see it." The puff of warm breath from Xiao Qiye warmed up the little jade earring on Shenzhequan's ear. Looking ahead, he murmured, "Xiao Xian." Xiao Qiye turned his head. Shenzhequan said something, but the wind was too strong, and Xiao Qiye did not hear him clearly. Refusing to let it drop, he moved in closer and motioned for Shenzhequan to repeat it. Shenzhequan said, "Keep going, and we're going to cross the border." "Then so be it." Xiao Qiye did not stop. "I'm taking you home to meet my third and eldest brother." "What did you just say?" Shenzhequan shouted in the wind, "Where is my fan?" Xiao Qiye scooped up Shenzhequan in his arms and suddenly reined in the horse, causing Langtao Shuijin to raise his hooves and neigh. The world turned upside down in Shenzhequan's vision, and a muffled thud rang out right after. The two of them tumbled and rolled in the grass along the slope. Xiao Qiye wrapped his arms around Shenzhequan to shield him. He did not get up when they came to a stop. Instead, he spread his arms and remained lying under Shenzhequan and said, "You lied to me." Shenzhequan pinched his cheek and asked, "Who lied to you?" Xiao Qiye stared at Shen Zequan as he said huffily, "You lied to me. Liar. Scoundrel. Heartless man." Shen Zequan tugged over a handful of grass and plastered them all over Xiao Qiye's face. Xiao Qiye did not dodge. He stretched out his arms to embrace Shen Zequan and forcefully held him to his chest. He said wickedly, "In this life, even if I die, I have to die with you." He hugged Shen Zequan so tightly that Shen Zequan's head was buried in the pit of Xiao Qiye's neck. Shen Zequan made a few attempts at struggling, but he could not break free, so he said in a muffled voice, "Xiao Er, if you suffocate me to death, then you'd be murdering your own husband." Xiao Qiye said, "Then repeat what you said earlier." Shen Zequan gasped hard for breath and finally managed to peek out from under Xiao Qiye's palm. With deep feelings, he said, "Xiao Er, you're suffocating." Xiao Qiye rubbed away at Shen Zequan's head until even the latter's cheeks flushed red and his hair was all tousled, looking not in the least like Vice Commander Shen at all. Xiao Qiye said resentfully, "Shen Zequan." There were bits of grass in Shen Zequan's mouth. Huh. Xiao Qiye cupped Shen Zequan's cheeks and lifted the latter's head to kiss him. But just as their lips were about to touch, he stopped and said callously, "Kiss me." Shen Zequan could only remain in this position with his head slightly raised. He endured it for a moment, then said, "Release your hands then." Xiao Qiye said, "Nope. Think of a way yourself." Shen Zequan could not reach him. Pursing his lips, he grabbed hold of the front of Xiao Qiye's robe to yank him over and gave him a peck on the lips. Xiao Qiye's expression remained unchanged. Shen Zequan was still trying to reach him, so Xiao Qiye lowered his head and kissed him so hard that Shen Zequan bent backward. Even his bites were merciless. Xiao Qiye's arms were still locked around his waist in a hug, and as Shen Zequan leaned back, he felt a stab of pain in his neck and sucked in a breath with narrowed eyes. In no time, their positions were reversed. Shen Zequan sank into the grass. He could see the entire boundless starry sky as Xiao Qiye entered him. Sounds he could barely suppress escaped his lips as he grabbed a lock of Xiao Qiye's hair, which wound around his fingers as they tensed and curled. The stars were dazzling before his eyes, and his consciousness gradually disintegrated in the wind. He gazed at Xiao Qiye a little dizzily, clearly sensing that the wolf pup was much fiercer than usual. "Xiao Er," Shen Zequan dragged out the syllables. Xiao Qiye bent down, enveloping him and blocking out all the wind and stars at the same time. "I love you." Xiao Qiye seemed to have fallen in love with such whisperings and sentiments lately. The closer he was to home, the more he would act like a child. He took possession of Shen Zequan, and he was also taken by Shen Zequan. He was not stingy with declarations of love such as these. Each time he said it, he would make Shen Zequan clench hard and tremble in spite of himself. Shen Zequan seemed to be sighing and moaning as he got immersed in these sweet murmurings and clung close to Xiao Qiye, while Xiao Qiye indulged to his heart's content with wild abandon at the boundary of Libei. Only the two of them knew of the decadence taking place beneath those seemingly intact clothes. With his back to the Hanjian mountains, and under that enchanting murmurs of the wind, Xiao Qiye revealed just how feral and domineering he could be. Shen Zequan gradually forgot all about the Milky Way above as he kissed Xiao Qiye. He soared high up in the clouds and fell back into the embrace of the wind, eventually melting into the crooks of Xiao Qiye's arms. ******. When Shen Zequan woke up, the day was just beginning to break. Thin rays of the morning sun shone through the bamboo blinds. He stretched his hand out and felt the fading residual heat beside him. Xiao Qiye had gone out of the city earlier, leaving his old robe still hanging on the clothes rack. A small incense had been lit in this room to repel mosquitoes. The mingling of heat still lingered on Shen Zequan. Shen Zequan spread his arms apart and took up both of their spaces. He had yet to close his eyes for the second time when he suddenly propped himself up into a sitting position. He hurriedly put on his clothes and wooden clogs and pushed the door open. "Quick! The redness at the corners of Shen Zequin's eyes was visible. In a hoarse voice, he said to Ding Tao, who was under the eaves, "Send that new pair of armed guards to see Ian immediately." Ding Tao was feeling a little dispirited because he had been left behind. He was presently sitting cross-legged at the edge of the small pond, drawing as he vented his frustrations. When he heard Shen Zequin, he did not even put away his brush. Instead, he rose to his feet and attempted to run. A sharp-eyed Qiao Tianya deftly caught hold of Ding Tao's back collar and said to Shen Zequin, "His lordship brought it with him." The rush of coolness in the morning sobered Shen Zequin up. He tapped his wooden clog, nodded his head, and made to return to the room when Qiao Tianya added, "But he only took one along. He said to keep the other one for master." Shen Zequin stood still for a moment without saying a word. He saw that it was going to be completely daylight soon, and so he did not intend to return to bed. "How many men from the imperial army have been left behind?" Qiao Tianya answered, 2,000. They are all at the Biwen hunting grounds. Prepare the register of names. The imperial army must not be lumped together with the soldiers from Tse province. Shen Zequin pulled the front of his clothes and said, "Mr. Changfeng wants to discuss the purchase and sale of grains between Tse province and Sha province in details. Go tell him that we will discuss it today." Qiao Tianya was not in a hurry to leave. He took out a letter from the front of his robe and said, "Master, you have a letter from Qiang in Juexi." "Good timing." Shen Zequin said. "Is the fleet of ships in Yanji harbor all good? The Shi clan's shops have nothing to do with us, so the surface-level policing will not involve them. But Shueziao's Wo merely emptied their silver warehouse and left these money-making shops to us. My guess is that he might not have necessarily done it willingly. There are no signs of activities from the Chu capital. Even if Shueziao's who has a foolproof plan, he can't be in two places at the same time. He has no one who can look after those shops on his behalf in Juexi." Qiao Tianya released Ding Tao and continued, "However, what Qiang means is that the Chu capital did not go and create trouble for him, but the Yan clan of He province did. The Yan clan of He province owned the waterways of Cha province. They were prominent merchants south of Chu capital. Lei Changming was able to establish his brigade of bandits because the Yan clan was backing Lei Zhengzhi. Shen Zequin had been taking them into consideration. He was not really surprised to hear this. "I know very little about the Yan clan," Shen Zequin said. "There's not much news about them in Chu capital, either." Ding Tao jumped in excitement at his words and said, "Young master, I know of this. The one supporting Lei Jingzhi is the current head of the Yan clan, a man by the name of Yan Hiru. Rumor has it that he's such an extravagant and ostentatious person that he refuses to go out without a sedan chair worth its weight in gold. He's not only dressed in gold, even the abacus he carries along with him is made of precious gold and jade. He's very, very, very rich." In his haste, Ding Tao's pronunciation of very came out sounding vague, so he lifted his little book and showed it to Shen Zequin. There was a scrawl drawn in brush of a figure holding up an abacus. He was dressed in copper coins all over, giving off a strong rich man aura. "Where did you hear of this?" Qiao Tianya asked. Ding Tao pointed in the direction of the prison and replied, "Master brought home a silly lad the last time they caught the bandits. He's almost as tall as Jingur and he's incomparably strong. I used a few sweets to trick this information out of him. This lad is so simple-minded that he will spill it all if you give him food." Shen Zequin vaguely remembered that Xiao Qi seemed to have mentioned it. He said, "Weren't the remaining bandits sent back?" "Yeah." Ding Tao nodded. "But master said he's too silly. He can't survive if he returns, so we might as well keep him here with us." Shen Zequin still wanted to know the details of the Yan clan, so he said, "Bring him here." *******. Zhao Hui fed the eagles at dawn. Wearing an arm guard, he held up his arm to them one at a time to let them perch on him while he fed them meat. At other places, there would be a servant specifically assigned to the eagles to handle matters like these. But when it came to Xiao Qiye's generation in Libei, they all liked to do it themselves and raised the eagles they owned and tamed themselves. When Zhao Hui fed Yu, who had been following Xiao Jiming all this while, he discovered that its back had been badly scratched, and there was a bald spot on it. What happened? Zhao Hui held Yu and pushed aside its feathers for a look. He asked the soldier on the side, did it fight with someone? The soldier held the leather bag containing the strips of meat and took a few steps with Zhao Hui. He said, I have no idea, General. It went out hunting a few days back, and when it circled back from the south, it was already injured. I had the physician look at it, and he said this wound was caused by the talons of a bird of prey. Yu was a gerfalcon too, and it was considered larger in size amongst all the flocks of birds in Libei. Xiao Fangxiu was the one who was taming it originally, but he later gave it to Xiao Jiming. It had followed Xiao Jiming into battle for the last few years, and it had never suffered defeat against the Saker falcons from the Hanshi tribe. Zhao Hui scrutinized the wound and wondered, how strange. Whose eagle is as ferocious as this? One of these words sent a sudden jolt through Zhao Hui's mind. He abruptly turned his head and looked to the south. The breeze was still the same. There were no traces of a gerfalcon in the skies. The sky in Libei was still blue. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 126, Li Xiong. Just as his name suggested, Li Xiong was like a baby bear. He stayed in the prison for a little less than half a month. Every day, he sat cross-legged with his face to the bars, looking helplessly at the door as he waited for Lei Jingzhi to come and take him away. Seeing as he was young, the wardens all loved to tease him. He was a strong but simple-minded boy who did not get angry even when he was made fun of. The only thing was that he had a terrifying appetite. He could eat a meal for 3 people in one sitting. The warden opened the door for a shackled Li Xiong, who asked with pressing urgency, has my big bro come to pick me up? The warden clapped Li Xiong on the back and said nothing to him. Qiao Tianya had arranged for a horse carriage to come and take Li Xiong away. Fearing that Li Xiong might make a ruckus and stir up trouble on the way, the warden made a special point of securing the fetters around Li Xiong's ankles. Li Xiong was not used to riding in the carriage and all that swaying made him dizzy. Finally, he arrived at the place, but when he got off the carriage and saw the mansion entrance, he refused to move his feet. I'm not going in. Li Xiong stood where he was, like a stake nailed to the ground. No matter how they pushed and shoved him, he remained absolutely still. This place is too big. Once I enter, my big bro won't be able to find me. The weather was oppressively hot, and everyone was sweating profusely just by standing there. The warden, afraid of offending them, was overwrought with anxiety, and so he attempted to trick Li Xiong, go in first. We'll bring you out after you go in. Li Xiong found this man to be very much like a weasel with how his eyes shifted around when he spoke. He looked like a liar, so Li Xiong shook his head sullenly and refused to budge. The warden tried his best to persuade him, but to no avail, so he steeled himself and squeezed in together with the others behind Li Xiong in an attempt to push him inside. Li Xiong's heels scraped across the ground. Annoyed from the pushing, he jerked his arms and bellowed, I'm not going in. Nope. The men behind him had to take a step back in unison from the force that he exerted. The warden saw him struggling and was worried that those shackles would not hold up, so he hurriedly ordered, hold him down. Don't let him make a commotion. When Li Xiong saw them pouncing towards him, he spontaneously spread his legs in a horse stance to hold his body firm and steady. His suntanned face raged with fury. The warden strained himself to the limit and exerted all his strength, but Li Xiong did not budge even the slightest. It looked like they were going to be delayed at the entrance. Ji Gang happened to return from his stroll outdoors with Fei Sheng following at his side. Even from afar, he saw the crowd at the entrance along with the horse carriage parked in the middle of the road. With a hand at his back, he was just about to inquire when he saw the wardens exclaim out loud just as Li Xiong threw all of them off from him. Such strength! Fei Sheng cheered and watched Ji Gang's expression. Ji Gang was a practitioner of the Ji clan's boxing style and he valued strength most. Sure enough, his eyes lit up and said, "Where did this lad came from?" Fei Sheng hurried over. He did not need to ask as he could more or less guess from the way the wardens were dressed. He clutched, then he immediately released the Xiaochun blade at the side of his waist, before lifting the chain on the ground with one foot as he said, "Out of the way. I'll truss him up." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Shen Zequan was in the room waiting for Kong Ling and the rest when he heard the commotion happening at the courtyard. He lifted the bamboo blinds. When he saw Ji Gang entering, he could not help but be taken aback. "Shifu, what's wrong?" Ji Gang handed his birdcage to Qiao Tianya and had him hang it up on the veranda. He bent over to scoop up a few handfuls of water from the copper crock to wash his hands. "I picked up a lad before entering. Take a look, see if he is the one you want." As soon as the words were out of his mouth, they saw Fei Sheng drag in a sturdy lad with iron chains as though he were hauling in a bull. The lad was still throwing a tantrum and he yanked Fei Sheng towards himself. Fei Sheng was, at the very least, a vice commander of the Jinyi Wei and yet his clothes were already drenched in sweat just from the short distance of pulling and dragging. "Oh!" Ding Tao poked his head out from the room and yelled, "That's him, Li Xiong." Shen Zequan asked, "What's happening?" Fei Sheng wanted to answer but the chain suddenly went taut, and his entire body was thrown backward and quickly dragged over. Li Xiong pulled at the chain, struggling until cracks appeared on his wooden shackles. He dragged Fei Sheng round and round the courtyard. Fei Sheng's back scraped across the beds of flowers, and mud splattered all over his neck. He had the intention to put on a display of his prowess but discovered that he could not even steady his own body at all. Qiao Tianya was about to react in that instant, but Ji Gang put out an arm to block him from moving and bellowed, "Tao Sui." Ding Tao uttered an acknowledgement, stuffed his book into his robe, and nimbly leaped over the railing on the veranda. Fei Sheng was still being dragged around. Ding Tao chased after them for a few steps but knew he could not stop Li Xiong by pulling him, so he stepped down on the chain and called out, "Li Xiong." However, he slipped and his foot got caught in front of the chain. The moment Li Xiong tugged at the chain, Ding Tao fell over backward. Quick-wit as he was, he used both arms to protect his head and shield his cheeks with his elbows as he fell into the soft, loose soil with a thud and tumbled over. Flower stem stabbed into his outer arm, blocked by the dogskin arm guard that he had just secured on himself. Fei Sheng hooked a foot around the edge of the stone to bring himself to a stop and felt the sharp pain from the chain winding tightly around his arm. Gritting his teeth, he flipped over to his feet and pulled hard until he was almost leaning backward in a crouching position. His veins bulged, and he could not help but cuss, "This darn bear-like strength." Ding Tao leaped to his feet and ran for a few steps before he sprang. Using the momentum from a kick on the railing to propel himself forward, he landed on Li Xiong's back. He pulled at Li Xiong's back collar with one hand, clamped his legs around Li Xiong's nape, and raised a fist, but he did not punch him. Instead, he yelled, "Let go." Li Xiong's shoulders sank from the weight. He was thrown off balance by the force of impact when Ding Tao pounced on him. He bent slightly at the knees to stabilize himself, then released the chain and reached back with one hand to pull Ding Tao off him. He had only just stretched out his hand halfway when he was encumbered by the shackles. Flying into a rage, he whipped his upper body around in an attempt to throw Ding Tao off. Ding Tao held onto him like a monkey but while he did not slip off, the book in his robe fell out. Ding Tao's was the most skilled in Qinggong, which was taught to him by none other than his own father himself. Their family worked as guards in Libei, and they always brought a notebook along with them while on the job to record every single incident regardless of its significance. This book was far more important than their own lives. In order to prevent the book from falling on the battlefield, Ding Tao's father mastered the Qinggong skill specifically used for the purpose of fleeing for his life. A pity that his father eventually died chasing after his book, slit in the throat by another. Ding Tao was anxious upon seeing the book slip, and reached out an arm to catch it, but Li Xiong grabbed his arm instead and flung Ding Tao over one shoulder and slammed him to the ground like a fish he had caught from the stream. A loud thud rang out. Ding Tao's entire back slammed onto the ground, and he yelped soundlessly from the pain. Even so, his feet swiftly caught hold of the book even as Li Xiong clutched Ding Tao's collar and hauled him off the ground. Too preoccupied to bother about the blows, Ding Tao tossed the book up with his legs and caught hold of it with one hand. In the next moment, he was slammed down to the ground again. This time, Ding Tao could not hold back. He choked and coughed, feeling the bile in his stomach rise. He lifted his legs and wound them around Li Xiong's arm, then turned over and used the momentum to fling Li Xiong to the ground. Li Xiong's shackle broke from the impact. He rolled to his feet and bulged his eyes in a glare as he charged towards Ding Tao with a raised fist. Halfway there, his whole arm suddenly felt immensely heavy, as if he had, in a blink of an eye, struck a steel plate. Even with that astonishing strength of his arm would not budge. Ji Gang held Li Xiong's fist in one hand, and rebuked, "Stop it." Li Xiong was reluctant, but his legs did not seem to obey him, as he was beaten back a few steps by this white-haired old man. Unable to maintain his balance, especially after just getting up, he fell on his butt. Ji Gang flicked his sleeves and pulled Ding Tao up from the ground. Ding Tao stuffed the book back under his robes and said, "Grandpa, he hurt me so much." Ji Gang patted the soil off Ding Tao's back and said, "I told you a long time back that you will sooner or later end up on the short end of the stick by resorting to trickery and evasive tactics. When you jumped on him earlier, you should have used the bullfight move on him. Why did you hesitate?" Ding Tao wiped the sweat on his face, feeling very aggrieved. He ate the sweets I gave him, and just yesterday he was still friendly with me. Only then did Qiao Tianya folded his arms as he leaned against the pillar. He whistled at Fei Sheng and quipped, "Lao Fei, not up to it, huh?" Fei Sheng simply took off his filthy outer robe and laughed as he cursed, "Son of a bitch, why don't you try? This lad's strength is out of this world." Shen Zequan was a little surprised. Xiao Qiye was the strongest person he had ever seen. He could draw the 100 Jin conqueror's bow relying on just his arm strength alone, with no need for external aids. It was easy for Xiao Qiye to hoist him over one shoulder while getting up a horse or heading into a river. But even Xiao Qiye was not this frightening strong when he was Li Xiong's age. "Which one of your parents is from Bianxia?" Ji Gang pulled Ding Tao behind him and took a few steps forward as he asked Li Xiong. Li Xiong's buttocks were hurting from the fall. His shackles were gone, but the fetters on his feet were still there. He was reluctant to come inside in the first place. Fei Sheng's treatment had sparked his rage, and this was followed by Ji Gang beating him back. Now seeing Ding Tao being coaxed by others after making his way back under the eaves, he pouted, threw his head back, and burst out wailing. He kicked his legs and cried, "Why are you people bullying me?" Shen Zequan let his hands droop and said to Ji Gang, "This one's still a child." Ji Gang observed the back of Li Xiong's shoulders and said, "He was fighting in such a haphazard way earlier, relying fully on brute force. Feels a little like wrestling. Lad, tell me honestly, is one of your parents from Bianxia?" Li Xiong ignored Ji Gang. Any words that being spoke to him was not registering in his ears at this moment, as he cried particularly hard. He had been following Lei Jingzhi since he was young, and now, without him, Li Xiong was like a baby abandoned on the streets at a loss for what to do and with nobody to turn to. His cries gave Shen Zequan a headache. Shen Zequan did not sleep well last night, and long periods of standing made him feel tired all over. He said to Ding Tao, "Give him some more of your sweets." Ding Tao was feeling even more aggrieved now. He felt around in his sleeve pocket slowly before finally digging out an oiled paper. It's melted. Qiao Tianya picked up a branch of blossoms from the ground and held it between his teeth. Looking at Li Xiong with a smile, he stepped over the railing and squatted down before him. He waved his hands and said, "This big brother shall remove your fetters for you and get someone to bring you some food. Do you want rice or noodles?" Li Xiong hiccuped, his face glistening with snot as he sniffled, "I want meat." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The bamboo blinds were partially lifted, and it was cool inside the house. Li Xiong sat cross-legged by himself before the small table, grabbing the meat with his hands and feasting on them with great relish. Ding Tao secretly counted the plates, feeling as if he was going to be full just from counting them. His mother is most likely a woman abducted by the Biancha cavalry. It's chaos along the Hashi River banks, and things like this were common occurrences during the earlier years. The Duan province garrison troops didn't want to cross the border to give chase either. Ji Gang half turned his body and studied Li Xiong. But with a sturdy physique like this, his father is unlikely to be an ordinary person. I wonder how he fell into the hands of the bandits. If he really has Biancha blood, then it's not strange that he was abandoned. Shen Zequin recalled Li Xiong's earlier display of strength. Chu Capital's case files have annual records of names of those reported to be abducted at the frontiers, with the highest numbers reported in Duan province. If those abducted women were to get pregnant, the Biancha tribes were unwilling to raise the children and would throw those women back along the banks of Hashi River. Though their original families would not want to take them back again either. Fei Sheng had just changed into clean robes. Seeing Qiao Tianya's silence, he said, "It's fine if he just happened to fall into the bandits' hands. What I fear is that the bandits raised him for a specific purpose. That won't be the case." Ji Gang shook his head slightly. "You've never seen the people from Biancha. They are just like us, not everyone can be born to be that big and tall. Look at the Libe armored cavalry. Other than requiring you to have the requisite household registration to join the army, they also require you to have the physique, but not all of them are as sturdy as the Prince of Libe. I do think that this lad's father isn't likely to be an ordinary person. He would have been able to get some official posts in the Biancha cavalry just with this strength alone. However, there is no one like that among the Biancha generals I know near Zongbo." "Lad," Qiao Tianya said as he drank the chilled soup, "you've had your meat. It's time for you to talk." There was still meat in Li Xiong's mouth, so he was too occupied to reply. He swept a glance over the group of people, finally resting his gaze on Shen Zequin and mumbled something. Ding Tao leaned over and listened carefully for a moment before he turned his head to tell Shen Zequin, "Young master, he's asking you why you are wearing an earring." "Young master's wearing it because he wants to. What are you asking this for?" "Oh, you saw the same one before, not the same? So is it the same or not?" "Of course young master's jade earring wasn't bought with money. You've seen it before." Li Xiong swallowed the meat. Without bothering to wipe his mouth, he looked at Shen Zequin and said, "I've seen you before, at Giedel of Hashi River." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 127, Vulture. Ji Gang rose to his feet abruptly and exclaimed, "That nonsense." Although Li Xiong had been beaten back by Ji Gang, he was not afraid of him. He retorted resolutely, "I'm not talking nonsense. I have seen him before. There's a portrait of him in Giedel. My big bro used to live there. I remember it clearly." Fei Sheng thought this did not bode well considering that he was not Shen Zequin's trusted subordinate yet, so there were some matters that he was not at liberty to remain here and listen. Thus, he got up and said, "Seems to me like he's more or less done with eating. Master, I'll inform the kitchen to stop serving up the meat." Once Fei Shen withdrew, Shen Zequin asked Ji Gang to sit and said to Li Xiong, "Look carefully. Are you sure it's my portrait?" Li Xiong grasped the handkerchief he used to wipe his mouth with 2 fingers and scrutinized Shen Zequin for a moment. Then, he answered hesitantly, "It kind of looks like, yet also kind of doesn't." Shen Zequin felt a slight stir in his heart. He stirred the spoon in the soup and lowered his eyes. "The person in the portrait you've seen is a woman, correct?" It finally dawned on Li Xiong. "Oh, right. That portrait's a woman and you're a man." In just a short moment, Shen Zequin made plenty of conjectures. He watched the sour plums stirring in the soup and thought back to what Zhou Gui had once said. He also remembered his mother, Bai Cha, as well as Lei Jingzhi, who had just returned to the prefecture of Dun Province's territory. "What kind of place is this Gedal?" Shen Zequin asked without batting an eyelid. ******. Gedal lies to the east of Hashi River and is a part of the area within the Biancha's borders. In the early days, it was a temporary residence for the Zongbo bandits to hide from the pursuit of the Zongbo garrison troops, but later they engaged in the illicit trade of selling women from decent families and was wiped out by the garrison troops of the 2 prefectures led by my elder brother, Tan Tai Long. The remaining people defected to the Biancha cavalry, and the one roaming around this place back then was the Biancha's Liaoying tribe. Tan Tai, who raised his head to watch Meng pass through the layers of clouds. Lei Jingzhi came from that place. After leaving the Zhu clan, he had nowhere to go. He thought of following the Zongbo bandits to make his fortune, so he went to Gedal. But for some reason, he failed to build up a brigade of bandits there and eventually returned to the prefecture of Duan province, where he met up with Lei Changming and started to make his mark. After Tan Tai Long wiped out the Gedal's bandits, the Liaoying tribe headed north. Those bandits who had initially defected to them followed them north, too. Chen Yang squatted on the ground and rubbed at a handful of dry soil. The Liaoying tribe is now the reserve cavalry of the Hanshi tribe. All the Saker falcons of the Biancha people are tamed by the Liaoying tribe. At first, their status among the 12 tribes of Biancha was pretty low, equivalent to that of an eagle slave, but 20 years ago, an Isuhiri appeared in the Liaoying tribe. Tan Tai, who was not from Libei, so he did not know the implication of this form of address. Gu Jin explained from the side, "That means a hero. You know Biancha is made up of numerous tribes, right?" Chen Yang looked back and smiled at Tan Tai, who only tribes where heroes have appeared can be called as one of the 12 tribes. Coincidentally, our lord and this hero were both born in the same year. Ever since his lordship established the Libei armored cavalry at Loxia Pass, this hero conquered the 3 tribes of Liaoying, Guma and Changju in the desert and defeated the old chief of the Hanshi tribe in the north with Saker falcons. From then on, he became the one and only great hero to command the 4 tribes since the reign of Emperor Yanji. He also became Libei's arch-enemy. Tan Tai, who gave a start. "Don't tell me it's..." Xiao Qiye had been standing behind them at some point onwards. He tilted his head to drink up the water in the water bag, then he picked up from where they left off as he secured the opening of the water bag. "It's Amuer." They made way for him, and Xiao Qiye stepped onto the clod of earth to look at the Hongjian mountains in the far distance. Amuer is currently the person most likely to be the monarch in Biancha. He has the ambition to subdue the 12 tribes. Xiao Qiye had a prominent nose that cast some shadows when he turned his head to the side. He continued, "He formed the strongest cavalry in Biancha and became the person since the dawn of history to attack and breach the furthest into the lands of Great Zhou. Lao Hu, the Biancha cavalry you see now is actually the Biancha cavalry that Amuer has reformed. He combined the horses from the Guma tribe and the Saker falcons from the Liaoying tribe together. It lowered the height of the Hanshi's tribe but increased their speed, and completed the deployment that would allow him to battle with Libei in the air. Lowered the height." Tan Tai, who looked at Lang Tao Shuijin and said, "Master, are the battle steeds from Libei and Hanshi tribe different?" "Of course they are different." Xiao Qiye let loose a laugh, but his smile was faint. "At first, in order to keep up with the Hanshi tribe's speed, my father opened up a new stable at Loxia Pass and stopped using the battle steeds from Suotian Pass. The current battle steeds of the Libe armored cavalry are all reared from that time on. Strong and muscular, they are all wild horses from the foot of the Hanjian Mountains, and also the same breed of horses that the Hanshi tribe once used. But Amuer later came to realize the drawbacks prematurely. He thought that for the same breed of horses, the Libe armored cavalry's weight-bearing capacity was stronger. Once the Libe armored cavalry removed their armors, the Hanshi tribe's speed would no longer be an advantage. So, he took down the Hanshi tribe's horse ranch on the Hanjian Mountains and swapped them for the Guma tribe's ponies. Lang Tao Shuijin shook its mane and circled around Xiao Qiye to eat grass. We have come to grief because of those ponies. Chen Yang gestured to indicate the height for Tan Taihu. The Guma tribe's horses caught the Libe armored cavalry off guard. Tan Taihu did not understand. He had been in the prefecture of Deng province and the imperial army successively, but neither of these was the main forces of the cavalry, so he did not know what was so formidable about those ponies. They are astonishingly fast. The expression in Xiao Qiye's eyes grew a little frosty as he recalled the fleeting glimpse he had caught many years before. Those horses are valiant and strong. Although they are small and short, they have great endurance. The Guma tribe has been fighting battles with the Bianjun commandery all this while. Outsiders do not understand. They think that Lu Guangbai doesn't live up to his name and isn't worthy of being ranked as one of the 4 generals in the world, but put them in his position, and they will know after a trial run that it isn't an ordinary cavalry his infantryman has been launching night raids on to wear them down, but the world's fastest cavalry. Qidong has been stationed in the south with increased military strength for many years, yet they have never managed to weaken the Guma tribe, and this is all because they could not catch up with them. This is also the reason why the Chu capital isn't willing to let Lu Guangbai dispatch his troops. When they appeared in the grasslands of Libe, they nearly crushed the Libe armored cavalry, which was just beginning to take shape. The weight increase by my father turned the Libe armored cavalry into prey at the mercy of the Hanshi tribe's machetes after the Hanshi tribe's change of horses. To solve this problem, my father chose to continue piling on the weight and turned Libe armored cavalry into an iron wall that could not be moved. With the strong winds stirring on the grassland, Xiao Qiye lost himself in his thoughts. Lao Hu, the reason the Bianchi cavalry was able to fight their way through Zongbo 6 years ago had everything to do with Amuer's change of battle steeds. If they had continued to use the wild horses at the foot of the Hanjian Mountains without any army supplies, they would not have the stamina to last that long. Their horses are not only fast but also tough, and they won't slow down at all when passing through the desert. Paired with the Saker falcons acting as reconnaissance outposts, they will prove to be a great catastrophe to the Zongbo garrison troops. In fact, this was an issue that had Xiao Qiye tossing and turning about all night after the defeat of the Zongbo troops. He had followed Xiao Jiming into battle when he was in Libe, and his memory of the Hanshi tribe's present structure had been deeply impressed in his mind. He even pondered to himself more than once that if he was in his father's place back then, what else could he have done other than increasing the weight of the cavalry troops? He looked forward to his eldest brother's answer, and Xiao Jiming's choice to this was to thin down the Libe armored cavalry's armor and enhance their mobility. However, Xiao Qiye was not satisfied. He was a greedy wolf. He could not simply give up the Libe armored cavalry's advantage. However, this was not a problem that could be solved by just imagining things. For this reason, Xiao Qiye opted to head south with the army before entering Chu capital to witness the slaughterhouse that was Zongbo with his own eyes. He also saw Lu Guangbai's infantry. I can't catch up with them. They are too fast. 6 years ago, Lu Guangbai squatted on the ground and drew a map for Xiao Qiye. But Bianjun commandery is pretty good. The beacon towers stretching 10,000 of li can transmit news quickly. At night, we are the stopper. As long as we block off the narrow opening, they won't be able to enter and exit freely. When the truncated squad falls behind, then no matter how fast their speed is, they can only be headless chickens. Zhou Qiankai once said, "Ah yeah, an attack is an opportunity to defend and defense is a strategy to attack." The reason that the Tianfei watchtower is able to stand firm without falling is not because of how strong I was as a leading general, but because heaven has bestowed upon Tianfei watchtower a strong geographical advantage. However, Tianfei watchtower was forced to take a defensive stance because once our troops head out, we will not be able to stand up to the Bianchi cavalry's assaults. I was the general who cower behind the city gates. In this world, the only army who can pit themselves against the 12 tribes of Bianchi when it comes to going on the offensive is the Libe armored cavalry. I told your father numerous times to never let the Libe armored cavalry become a real shield, that would cause Great Zhou to lose its spear completely. If you become a general one day, remember the setup of opportunities and strategies. The battlefield is a place that undergoes myriad changes in the twinkling of an eye. The moment you fall into the rhythm and pace of the other side, you will lose all your advantages. You have to seize your opportunities firmly, you must learn forbearance. Sometimes, a perfunctory, painless blow is the prelude to exhaustion. The fist has to strike at the vital point. But it was too hard. Xiao Qiye had yet to think of a solution better than what his father and eldest brother had come up with. He could not even engage in a war of attrition like Lu Guangbai did. But he could not forget Zhou Qiankai's admonition, and he agreed wholeheartedly that the Libe armored cavalry could not be just shields. They had come this far after having gone through countless refinements to just bask in past glory. In Xiao Qiye's eyes, it was all too easy to beat back the Bianchi cavalry but way too difficult to repel Amuer. That's because the Bianchi cavalry was continuously becoming stronger and stronger under Amuer's command. This man had the final say in 4 tribes, he had nothing to worry about from the rear. He was like a vulture born in the desert, eyeing the meat that was Great Zhou, all the while attempting to invade it. When Xiao Fangxiu changed the Libe armored cavalry, Amuer changed the Hanshi tribe. When Xiao Jiming changed the Libe armored cavalry, Amuer changed the Hanshi tribe as well. He had an uncanny understanding of the pack of wolves from Libe. Looking at it from a certain angle, they were confidants. He understood the Libe armored cavalry even better than most of those from Libe themselves. Xiao Qiye's gaze was blocked by the Hanjian mountains, just like how he had always been blocked by his father and eldest brother. He had not gone head-to-head with Amuer before, yet he was already seeing the other party as an opponent he had to defeat. That was a worldly wise vulture, well versed in the ways of the world. Xiao Qiye was still a wolf who had just embarked on his journey home. Meng suddenly swooped down, bringing along a gust of wind in its trail that brushed across the guards' faces. It landed on Xiao Qiye's shoulders, the blood stains on its sharp talons leaving rough streaks of blood behind. It had already exceeded the size everyone used to imagine it would be. The only ones who were able to hold it up were Xiao Qiye and Shen Zequan, who was particularly gentle with it. Xiao Qiye collected his runaway thoughts and indicated to Chen Yang that there was no need for him to take the leather bag. He turned his head to look at Meng and said, "It has already hunted its fill." But Meng was acting a little unusual today. It stared at the sky with a sharp, penetrating gaze, never once shifting its gaze even when Xiao Qiye bent his fingers to stroke it. Xiao Qiye followed its gaze and looked over. It was quiet up there in the skies and down here on earth. The strong wind springing out of the grass was like a long serpent. At the same time, it bared open its bloody mouth. Meng took to the air once more and pierced through the wind to clutch hold of the saker falcon that was attempting to extricate itself from the grass. As the other bird spread its wings and flailed, Meng abruptly rose. By the time it brought the saker falcon before Xiao Qiye, this lone saker falcon had already become a bloody pulp of ripped flesh. Xiao Qiye abruptly mounted his horse. As he pulled on the reins, he surveyed his surroundings. His gaze finally landed on the east. He frowned. He had just entered Libe's territory and had not even reached the Libe relay station yet, So how could the Saker falcon of the Biancha tribes appear here? The sound of drums. Gu Jin raised his head and turned around with the wind. Master, it's coming from the east. That's the Bianbo camp, which is also the patrol camp. They have a backup support track that leads right to the northeast supply route. Chen Yang swiftly got on his horse, too. Before he lifted his whip, he suddenly remembered something and turned his head back in astonishment to say to Xiao Qi, "Yeah, the Shazan camp lies to the east of the Bianbo camp. That's where his lordship's frontline military forces are, along with a year-round reserve of battle steeds to be supplied to the battlefields up north for emergency use. Have the Biancha cavalry fought their way here? Then what about Shazan camp? What about the Prince of Libe?" Xiao Qi clenched the reins and spurred his horse into a gallop. End chapter.